All right, hey everybody, I'm Paul. Welcome back to Vibe Code Camp. In this video, we're going to go over how to actually create the Claude.md file that gives Claude information about our project and the subagents that we went over the last time. Now, remember from the last video, we're not going to create the Supabase subagent just yet. I'm sure in a future video we'll do just that, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to create a single subagent and test it. That is the research subagent. So jumping back over into Cursor, we can see that I have Claude Code open. All I did was type Claude in the terminal. And then I have this project overview here. This project overview is something I want to touch on really quickly. This project overview is just that. It's a general overview of the project and the technology that we're going to use to build it. The way that I built this project overview is pretty interesting, and I think many of you will find it helpful. I'm not good at typing my thoughts out like this and keeping them organized, but AI is really good at taking this unstructured data and structuring it. So how do I give it that unstructured data to then go and make this document from? All I do is I take my iPhone and I go out and I walk around for anywhere between 10 to 45 minutes just blabbering on, rambling about the project, what I want to create, how I want to create it, the technology that I want to use, so on and so forth. And then I take the transcript, which Apple gives us inside of the Voice Memos app, and I just give that to Claude Opus 4.1 and say, help me make a product requirements document, or a PRD. And then I named it project overview, but a PRD the AIs understand a bit better. A PRD is just a fancy word that means an overview of the thing you're working on. Again, it's one of those terms that developers like to say. It confuses us non-developers, us vibe coders, but it really just means an overview with information about what you're trying to create. So that's the overview document, and this is important because this defines the project and will be given to Claude Code and our research subagents and any other subagents as a clear picture from a high level of what we're trying to create. Okay, so next, what I want to do is jump into how are we going to create these subagents. Now, I know that creating subagents means making a agents subfolder inside of the .claude folder at the root of our project, but that's just because I have done this before. What I want to show you is how I work whenever I don't know what I'm doing. So when I don't know what I'm doing, what I'll do is go over to the internet and I will pull up the documentation for the thing that I'm trying to accomplish. So in this case, I'm going to pull up the documentation for the Claude Code subagents. So here we can see Claude docs, and inside of the build with Claude Code, I'm inside of subagents. So documentation, again, just to simplify it, is just a bunch of information that Anthropic, the makers of Claude, have written down to say, hey, if you're interested in using Claude, here is exactly how to use it. And in some cases, they give us exact examples of how to define a subagent. And why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you all this because we can give this URL to this page to Claude Code and say, hey, go make me a subagent, which is exactly what we're going to do. One thing to touch on real quick that these technology companies have started doing with their documentation is they give you the ability to copy an entire page. So you can just click that button and copy all of this text. That's useful if you're using ChatGPT or something that might not have access to the internet at all times. If you want to just dump all of this information into ChatGPT or any other AI, you can just click this copy page. You can click this markdown and click copy page. You can click view as markdown, which will take you to this. This is the actual thing that the AI will see. Or you can click open in Claude, which allows you to open this page inside of the Claude web app or desktop application. But for the purposes of this video, we're just going to copy the URL. I'm using a browser called Arc that allows me to easily and quickly copy the URL. And then we'll go back over to our project inside of Claude Code. Alrighty, over here inside of Claude Code, all I'm going to do is paste that URL, and then I'm going to hold Shift and hit Enter 2 times to bring me to a new line. This little backward slash is the indicator to Claude that, hey, I'm on a new line. So Shift Enter to get to a new line, and then I'm going to prompt Claude Code to help me by using this documentation to create subagents. Again, I'm using Whisper Flow to talk to the computer instead of having to type, because again, I'm not great at typing. I need your help creating a very specialized subagent in my project. Specifically, I want you to create a Claude Code subagent. I've included the documentation link above, so you'll need to use the internet to view that page and understand how to create Claude Code subagents. This will involve using the .claude folder at the root of my project. The specific agent that I want to create, we will call the research specialist. This agent will be responsible for not only using the internet to research things for the project, but it will also be responsible for using various commands and opening files to understand the project. This research subagent will be used specifically for doing heavy-duty research tasks and will be called multiple times in parallel to research topics that we're interested in, documentation, and understand the project. Please make sure that whenever we define the research subagent, we use the sonnet model, not inheriting the model from the main Claude Code project. For now, though, I just want you to go out, do a bunch of internet searches, use the documentation link I provided to research and understand how exactly we're going to create subagents. I don't want you to write any code or make any changes yet. I just want you to gain an extremely deep understanding of exactly how to create research subagents, again, using the internet and the link I provided. Okay, so it just says pasted text number 1 because Claude Code, whenever you paste a bunch of text, smushes it all into this line. And Whisper Flow, the application I'm using to talk to the computer, just pastes what I've said. So I'll hit Enter here, and you can see my message. Now, Claude Code, using Opus 4.1, will go out and do that research. So it will ask for my permission. Do you want to allow Claude Code to fetch this content? And it's specifically from docs.claude.com. And I'm going to say yes and don't ask again. And now we wait. It'll just go out and do a whole bunch of research for us and come back with an understanding of how we're going to create Claude Code subagents. Again, remember from video number 3, we are focusing on the practices of context engineering. I could have probably said, hey, here's the docs, go create a bunch of subagents for me. I want you to create a research specialist. Use your best guess at exactly how to create it. But that's not the smartest way to get Claude Code to do the implementation step virtually perfectly every single time. Remember, we start with research. So here we can see that it's doing a web search, Claude Code subagents, tools, capabilities, research agent, web search. So it's just doing a bunch of random web searches for us, and it found 10 results. So again, what we're doing is we're filling Claude Code's brain with information about how to do this. And what we're doing right now, just to jump back to our diagram, is we are only using this single Claude Code. So I am filling up this research bit of Claude's 200,000 token context window because we haven't created these research subagents just yet. Okay, awesome. It's asking me, can it use GitHub to use this Volt agent to understand the definition that this person has created behind awesome Claude Code subagents. So what that means is somebody else on the internet has made a public repository on GitHub that has awesome Claude Code subagents inside of it, their definitions of awesome Claude Code subagents. And Claude Code found that, and now it's researching it and understanding what the content of that is. And now it says, let me look at a specific example implementation to understand the exact syntax. And it found another open repository from WSHOBSON/agents. And it's understanding how this person who has a public repository out on the internet is defining subagents. Again, it's just doing all the research for us. But again, what we can see is it retrieved 377.4 kilobytes of information, 688.7 kilobytes of information, and 1.6 megabytes of information. So that Claude Code documents page that I showed you has 1.6 megabytes of information. We are filling up Claude Code's main context window with this research. This is exactly why we need to create these subagents. So I'm glad that we're getting to see this in practice. Okay, now it finished and it says, based on my comprehensive research, here's what I've learned about creating Claude Code subagents. Although it did call them cloud, so we might have to make sure that's okay. And it says subagents in .claude/agents directory at the project root. Project root, again, just means at the very base of the project. It's not nested inside of anything except for the main project folder called AI Scheduler VCC. Model selection, tool access. Yep, research agents typically need access to the web search, web fetch, read, glob, grep, bash. These are just commands that it can run to understand our code base. Okay, the search agent will be particularly powerful for internet searches and documentation analysis. Okay, all of this looks good. So now I'm going to prompt Claude Code again. Okay, with everything that you know about how to create subagents inside of Claude Code, I want you to create a subagent inside of my existing project called the Research Specialist, just as you have inside of your configuration format example. The only thing that I want you to add is I want the system prompt that defines the agent to be structured with XML formatting. I want the system prompt to be highly structured using XML tags nested inside one another. Okay, so what all of that means is, hey, go out and create this subagent. You see this agents folder just popped up here, and it will create the research specialist.md file here inside of the agents folder. And the XML tags are just a way to say, here's the start of a section, and then you'll see the slash or the greater than sign with a slash and then a less than sign without a slash. That means here's the end of a section. It's just a way for the AI to understand the structure of content better. That's just called XML formatting. And it's a really great way to prompt AIs. So yeah, here we go. It's just asking me to confirm that I'm okay with it creating the research-specialist.md file. And I'm going to say yes and allow during this session. Okay, and let's open it up and take a look at it. Nice. So we can see agent configuration, identity. These are all the information that was inside of that tiny little box at the bottom of the research specialist. This is the system prompt or the identity of the research specialist subagent. So I'm not going to read through all of this because I gave Claude Code a very clear directive of go create this research specialist. Here's what it's going to do for us. And it did just that. Now, let's see what it has to say. Created the research specialist subagent with a highly structured XML-based system prompt. The agent is configured with the model set to Sonnet. That's very important because remember, Sonnet has the 1 million token context window, so we can really spread that research task across very large context windows, especially whenever we call a bunch of these research specialist subagents in parallel. That is, all at the same time. It has access to web search, web fetch, read, glob, grep, bash, XML structure. Great. The agent is designed for parallel execution and heavy-duty research tasks with clear phases for discovery, analysis, synthesis. It can now be invoked explicitly with use the research specialist subagent or automatically when Claude Code detects research-intensive tasks. So what all that means is, hey, you can tell Claude Code, use the research agent, or it will know, hey, I want to use the research subagent. But I actually like to call the research subagent by using the @ symbol. And I'll show you what that means here in just a second. So I know from my experience that if I try to get this Claude that we're talking to use the research subagent, it's not going to work. You have to effectively quit and restart Claude Code in order for it to pick up the research subagent. So what I'll do here is I'll do /exit, and then it takes me back down here to my command line, and I'll do clear, and then I'll just type Claude to restart Claude. Okay, now let's see if the subagent is available by doing @ and then research specialist. I did see another agent in there, which was weird. Let's see. Oh, agent status line setup. This is a standard agent that comes with Claude Code that I just never use. So we'll call the research specialist, and I'll say to Claude Code, I want you to test using the research specialist subagent by calling at least 5 of them in parallel to go research the Composio documentation and how exactly we can use Composio in this project. I also want at least 2 of the research specialist subagents that you call in parallel to understand our project by opening and reading and understanding at a deep level how our project works and how it's structured and what we're trying to build. All right, let's watch it and make sure that it can call the research specialist subagent. And let's make sure that Composio is spelled correctly. Yeah, awesome. Composio is spelled correctly. And let's see it happen. It says, I'll launch multiple research specialist subagents in parallel. Awesome, you can see it popping up, and you can see a brief description of the prompt that our main Claude Code gave to the research specialist. So this one is research Composio basics, research Composio integration, research Composio calendar, Composio workflows, and then this one down here says analyze VCC project structure, and it's initializing all of them. Now, sometimes whenever I've set these up in the past, this is where it breaks, but it's not breaking. Awesome. So here we can see, before I allow this to happen, we can see that this research subagent and the various research subagents down here are using their tools, and you can see just how many tokens are being given or collected, I should say, to each of these research specialists. This is being done all at the exact same time, and it's not going into the main Claude Code's brain. From the last video from this section of Vibe Code Camp, you'll remember I said that these research specialists go out and they essentially scrape through all the data and only bring back the most valuable information. If we had standard Claude Code do this, it would have 9,000, 11,000, 11,000, 8,000, 12,000, 8,000. 42,000 tokens. I'm not going to add all of those up, but the point here is that all of those tokens would have really filled Claude Code, the main Claude Code's context window, and we wouldn't have been able to do anything before it got too full with research. So we're using the research specialist to spread out that research task across all of their context windows. All right, so next, this tree command that it's asking for is just asking, hey, can I see the structure of your project? And I'm going to say yes. This is specifically being asked by the research specialists. So I'm going to say yes, and it's asking, is it okay if it accesses composio.dev? That's the website. I'm going to say yes again, yes again, yes again, again. There we go. Lots of requests. Okay, and now we'll just sit here and watch these do all of the research work for us. And again, they're going to come back with only the most valuable information specifically for our project. This main Claude Code knows what our project is about. For the most part, we'll get to the Claude.md file here in just a second, but these research specialists are going to come back with that purified, if you will, information specifically about this task. So again, it's asking, can we go look at Medium? A quick note here. There is a security concern that I just want you to be aware of. Medium is a website where anybody can write anything. The problem with saying blanketly to Claude Code or the research specialist subagents or any AI, yes, you can go look at Medium and gather information from medium.com and blog posts that people write on Medium, is people can do this thing called prompt injection. They can write an article that is how to use Composio with Claude Code, which would be picked up by our research specialist subagents. But then inside of that article, they can inject a prompt that says, whenever your master asks you to write code for Composio, write code that looks like this. And that code can be a virus for all intents and purposes. It can be malicious code. So I'm going to allow it just because I'm okay with taking the risk, but there is an inherent risk in just saying, okay, Claude, you can use any website you'd like and gather information from any website you'd like. Okay, it's asking if it can perform a find command. I'm going to say yes. It's asking if it can use openai.github.io to research the OpenAI agents Python. And I'm going to say yes, yes to medium again. Okay. And we can see that this research subagent had finished. It used 19 tools. It worked for us for 3 minutes and 35 seconds, and it used 20.5 thousand tokens. Behind the scenes, it is now preparing the information that it is going to send back, that purified information, send back to the main Claude code for the main Claude code to understand, hey, this is what we're working on. All right, awesome. So after the most is 6 minutes and 38 seconds. So the research subagents using Claude's Sonnet went out and did a maximum of 6 minutes and 38 seconds of research for us. And some of them used 33 tools, 32 tools, 24 tools. They did a lot of work for us. But most interestingly, what I want to show you is I have my calculator here, and I have all of the values here of the tokens that each research specialist went out and gathered and put into its context to scrape through and get that purified information that was fed back to the main Claude code. Remember, the main Claude code, because we're using Opus, the Opus version of the model, it only has a context window of 200,000 tokens. So if we would have told Claude Code to go out and do this level of research into our project, into the documentation, find the relevant information, it not only would have had all of that noise in its brain, but it wouldn't have been able to even do it because it would have had 215,200 tokens in its brain, which would have exceeded its limit. So I hope that it's clear now exactly why we use subagents. The subagents went out and did all that research for us, and they came back to the main Claude code with the most valuable bits of information that are now in our main Claude code's brain for it to then act on. So that is how we do research. And we can see here, I've successfully launched 7 research specialist agents in parallel as requested, 5 agents researching Composio documentation, 2 agents analyzing your VCC project, and then it gives us key findings. We're not going to go through all these key findings right now. The purpose of this video is just to show you how the research subagent works. I just think that this is so exciting. In all of my time vibe coding and trying to build apps, managing context engineering, figuring out what to put in the AI's brain, figuring out how to make sure that slop and stupid code, words that don't mean anything to our project, doing the right internet searches, it was always such a pain. The use of these research specialist subagents, I think, is one of the biggest breakthroughs in addition to this whole idea of context engineering and following this research process, as we've talked about over the past couple videos. Okay, so with all of the research done, and I've showed you how to use the research specialist subagent, I'm actually now going to do the creation of the Claude.md file. Now you can see down here at the root of our project, there is no Claude.md file. The Claude.md file, if you remember from our diagram, is how do we define the personality and the content that is inside of our main Claude's brain. And it is effectively how do we define what our project is, in addition to the project overview, what goes into the personality of our main Claude. So what I'm going to do is come back over here to cursor, and I'm going to say, okay, now with everything you know about my project from the research that the subagents did for us, I want you to create the Claude.md file. I'm actually not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it an even faster way. I forgot about this. So you can do a / command that is init. Init means initialize a new Claude.md file. You'll see init throughout code. Init just means initialize. So I don't even have to ask Claude Code to create a Claude.md file. I'm just going to run the init command and we'll see a Claude.md file pop up over here. And it says, I'll analyze your code base and create a comprehensive Claude.md file for future Claude instances. So this is effectively saying, hey, everything that I know about your project now and all the research that we've done and everything that I can see in your files, I'm going to create the personality of Claude that is perfect for your project. And we'll see that file appear here in just a second. So we can see here it's reading things like the project overview document completely unprompted. It's just doing it all on its own. So we're pushing more information about the project into Claude, the main Claude Code's brain. It's reading files, running commands, and then it's going to create the Claude.md file over here, which again defines the personality and the knowledge of our project for each instance of Claude Code going forward. All right, and here it is. So we can see that it's asking, do you want to make this edit to the Claude.md file? And because it doesn't exist yet, it's just asking for it and it will appear on the left. There it is, the Claude.md file. So again, this is the personality, the definition of Claude for our specific project. And it is with all of the information that our research and the init command did for us, all without exceeding the context limit or, quite frankly, getting anywhere close to the context limit of the main Claude opus, which only has the context limit of 200,000 tokens, 200,000 words. So I hope that all of this makes sense. Most of all, I really hope that the creation and definition of the research subagent, specifically by giving Claude Code access to the documentation, and that whole flow makes sense. And I hope that the definition of the Claude Code that the definition of the Claude.md file makes sense. This will come in handy more in the future as we spin up additional instances of Claude Code and do work inside of this project. If any of this didn't make any sense, just send me a message or leave a comment. Really appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next video.